On today's Join Us in France, tips on using Uber in Paris. This is Join Us in France, episode 151. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and today I bring you a conversation with Blair Bell on her experience using Uber in Paris. For today, I will forego any introduction because I am recording this episode in advance. I know I won't have time to work on it while I'm in Paris leading the inaugural tour. So I will tell you all about the tour in the next episode, and I'm sure I'll have a lot of fun things to report on. But for today, we are going to discuss tips on using Uber in Paris. I know this is of interest to a lot of you. So thank you very much, Blair, for talking to me about Uber. I have not used it very much because since I live in France, I have my own car. In Paris, I used it once, and it was good. It was a good experience, but I didn't really want to base my, an episode just on one experience. So thank you, Blair, for coming on the show and sharing your many experiences and giving so many great tips. Also, thank you for helping us compare the cost of Uber versus taxi and Uber versus public transportation. So thank you very much. And here you go. Enjoy the show. Hello, Blair, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, too. Lovely of you to offer to come talk to us today about using Uber in Paris.
Absolutely. I'm happy to.
Wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself briefly.
Sure. I am, my name is Blair, and this was my third trip to France and Paris. I was just there with my mother in August and got a lot of experience with Uber there. And then my husband and I just came back from our trip this week as a last-minute trip before our second baby is born, and I went at 34 weeks pregnant.
Ooh.
So I was definitely taking Uber everywhere, and I looked at my credit card bill, and it shows. So I have a lot more experience using Uber this time.
Wonderful. So tell us about it. What is it like? How is it different from in the U.S.?
So I would say just really the biggest thing, the difference is the language barrier. For whatever reason, I encounter a lot of people in France that do speak English, but the Uber drivers, either they don't feel comfortable speaking English or they really don't speak it at all. So that can be kind of a barrier. And then obviously it's a big city. So if you use the Uber pool option, you almost always have somebody riding with you, and that can really add on a lot of time to your trip.
Sure. Yeah, I've never used Uber Pool.
Yeah, it's some of the time it's probably about double the cost to get sometimes, because it all depends on what time you're traveling and how many drivers they have and what time of day. But sometimes it can be twice the cost to get just a straight Uber for yourself, like an Uber Black. Mm-hmm. And so it's the cheaper option. And if you're not in a hurry, sure, why not? Some of the time nobody rides with you. But that's, kind of a gamble that you have to take.
I see. So when we took Uber in Paris, first of all, they didn't have Uber Pop. Or did you find Uber Pop in France?
I don't know what Uber Pop is, actually.
It's kind of, as far as I understand, it's the Uber with the older cars, not as nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that didn't even show up on my app. It was either Uber Pool or Uber Black.
Right. That's what we found. And also when we used it, we couldn't see a bid up front. So we used Uber Black. And maybe we didn't know where to look for that information. It ended up being not very expensive at all, but we could. So did it work the same as in the US, where you could see the price of the ride?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
you just sometimes the pin is off to set your location. So you want to make sure you're really paying attention to that when you set your location. And then obviously tell it. Sometimes you'll type in a place and like a restaurant and it won't come up. So you have to look up the address of that restaurant. You just want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And then once you put in that, you hit the request Uber and it'll give you two options for the Uber Pool or Uber Black. It'll show you the difference in cost. And then if you do Uber Pool, you just say it's 1 to 2 riders. So you choose which one. And the price does go up a little bit if you have 2 riders. And then if you don't want that, you just click backwards and then hit Uber Black.
Okay.
And it does show you kind of all the drivers in the area, which is nice.
Yeah, that's very nice when you can see how long you're going to have to wait and that sort of thing.
Yes. And that actually, I noticed the time was usually off a good bit. And so I don't know if that was just traffic or people going the wrong way. But it did take a little bit longer.
You know, I've driven in Paris plenty. And if you take a wrong turn in Paris, you could be, just to circle back around, could take you another, 20 minutes. It's awful.
Oh, yeah.
You really don't want to make a mistake in Paris because you pay dearly in time. I mean, you can always track back to where you needed to be, but...
Exactly. Yeah. We had actually a couple really bad experiences while we were there with that exact situation.
Yeah.
And we, of course, were driving it. We took it on May Day, on May 1st.
Ah, yes.
And we weren't thinking, I wasn't thinking, and we went to non-touristy areas like the canal and a couple areas around that. And, of course, there was protesting in the streets and all the streets were blocked off. And a 10-minute trip took us over an hour.
Oh, my.
And, of course, the destination that we got to was closed. So,
oh, geez.
Yeah, I would stay away from that on a national holiday for sure.
Yeah, May 1st is a problem in France. And I released a short episode just on that because it can be you can be surprised. If you don't do your homework ahead of time, you can have big surprises.
Yes, and I read that while I was over there, and that was super helpful. Okay. As soon as we went back to the tourist areas, there was a lot more open, and it wasn't craziness. You just kind of have to stay away from the really touristy areas.
Right. If you're in touristy areas, you will find some public transportation and some venues open. But as soon as you're out of there, it's like everybody's off work.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, and I would suggest for that day, if tours are available outside of the city, like going to the Loire Valley or going to Normandy, do that. Because we had the option and we thought, well, it's our last day. We didn't realize things would be closed. Everything would be closed.
To that extent. Yeah. Yeah, because that never happens in America. Not even on Christmas Day.
Right. Everything's open. Yep.
Yeah. Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, you still find things open. No, in France, when we say it's closing, it's really closing, folks.
Even I was trying to find a bathroom, and even the McDonald's was closed.
Yep.
I mean, everything was closed, so I was panicking a little bit.
Yep. Okay, so a problem you had with Uber was you didn't find, in Paris, you didn't find a lot of drivers who could speak English.
Yes, and I speak basic French. So, and of course, I have the Google Translate app. So some of the times I would type something in and then play it so they could listen to it, and they would understand. But the language barrier was really big, and then I think Uber Pool, unless you're just not in a hurry at all and you have all the time in the world, that's a good option. But it kind of gave me a bad taste from doing Uber Pool because I do it here all the time in the U.S., especially when I live in Atlanta. But when I go to big cities like Seattle and other places like that, Chicago, I use it and it's never a problem. But over there, they're driving all around to find these people. And that was pretty unpleasant doing that.
There's probably not near as many Uber drivers in France as there are in the U.S., I would guess.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And then I noticed, so when I was there in August, when my mom and I took it a bunch of times, it was a little bit cheaper. But I think that's because most of the locals were gone in August. And it was really just tourists using it. And so the demand for it was low. So the prices were low. We never once had to share a car with anyone. And then this time in April, end of April, early May, all the locals are in town. All the locals are using it. It was much more expensive.
Yeah.
And, busy. So that that depends on what time you go. If you're going at a tourist time, it's easy. It's fast, it's cheap. But if you're on a budget, not the way to go at all.
Yeah. See, to give you just a price reference, I'm doing this from memory. I should have checked with my husband before we started talking. But we flew it into Orly, I think, and we were just going to Disneyland Paris that day. And there was 4 of us. So we decided to get an Uber, and it was cheaper than buying RER tickets. Just calling an Uber was cheaper than buying 4 RER tickets. So you really have to look at that as a good option anymore. I mean, it's not always the same, but it can be really cost effective, especially if there's more than 2 or 3 of you.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And then also, it's always cheaper than a taxi. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah.
We did take a taxi from Charles de Gaulle onto the left bank, and that was over 60 euros. But Uber, we took it on the way there, departing, and it was probably 15 euros less.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's definitely can be a good way to go. I did look up the price of 10 tickets for the metro, and that's going to run you right now about just over 14 and a half euros for 10 tickets. And so if you have 2 people, that's going to be 29 euros. And then I calculated all the trips we took. We took almost 20 trips with Uber. Which was over 185 euros. So you're talking about 3 times more to take Uber than taking the metro.
Yeah. Okay.
But we did find it, we did feel safe. We were above ground, got to see the city. But if you're certainly on a budget and you want to take it everywhere, it's not cheap at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But especially if you're, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, everybody knows that. I mean, the cheapest way is always public transportation. Always. I mean, that's probably true worldwide. So if you're traveling with somebody with, obviously me being super pregnant, I wanted to take it everywhere. Sometimes I just didn't have the energy. All right, let's get an Uber. But anyone with bad knees, or if you've been walking all day and you just can't anymore. Absolutely.
It's a great way to go.
Yeah. And it's really good if you install the app before you come to France. It'll be all set up. You set it up at home, and it's the exact same app, exact same way you're used to it.
Yes. If that's smart. Do it ahead of time. That way you can put your credit card in. They never have to see that. It's kind of nice that you don't have to tip them. They don't expect it. I would, only tip if they were, especially going to the airport when they're helping you with all your bags. And so that's different from the U.S. And then I love that the license plates the tags are also in the front of the car.
Yep.
Because that's easy to spot them coming. It'll say Volkswagen Passat and the license plate, but it won't say the color of the car or anything like that. So, you have to be on the lookout. It'll say like Volkswagen Passat EL 495, whatever. So you have to keep your eyes peeled for that coming. But that's a lot easier than the U.S. Obviously, it's only on the back.
That's true.
So that's kind of something nice over there. It makes it a little easier.
Yeah, you have to have your license plate both in the front and in the back in France.
Yeah, so that was helpful, even though the car types are quite a bit different than in the U.S.
That's true.
you don't really know what a Skoda looks like, but you're looking for the tag, so that's helpful.
You don't know what a Skoda looks like? Come on, what's wrong with you?
I'm like, I've never heard of this car brand, but I know what license plate to look for, so it's going to be all right.
It's the knockoff brand for Renault.
Oh, I see. I heard it was kind of like a Chevy over there, like, cheaper, easier, decent cars.
And now that I'm saying all this, I'm wondering, is it Renault or is it the cheap Volkswagen? I'm not sure. I don't know cars very much, but I can recognize a Skoda.
Yeah,
so.
I know American cars, and I know I know some German cars. I was very comfortable looking for the Volkswagens. So
Yeah. You're used to
that. That's about it.
Yeah.
But I would also say know some basic French directional phrases, like it's on the right, it's on the left, go straight. Turn on the air conditioning was very important.
Allumez la climatisation, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, you might want to put that in your notes section of this podcast, because I would try to Google Translate and it would never quite come out right. Mm-hmm. So just, little things like that would be super, super helpful for people using it over there. And then obviously downloading it ahead of time, like you said.
Yeah. Set up your app before you go. Maybe get if you've never used Uber in the US, maybe use it to get to the airport, so you at least have one experience, and then you can use it in Paris as well.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Very good. I think this is going to be a short episode. Do you want to tell us a little bit about when this baby's coming so soon? Right?
Yes. It's my second baby, so I have a hunch that she might be coming a little bit early. She's due in a month. So I just barely made a trip over there and back. The whole airplane ride home, I just kept thinking, please don't come. Please don't come. Let me get off this airplane. So I don't think I would recommend that. But that was just when we could go, and we got amazing tickets. And so we went for it, but probably would not do that in the future.
Yeah. Did you do anything particularly that you particularly enjoyed in Paris that you want to share?
Well, since I just went 9 months ago, I did a couple things that I wanted to do again. We use this American company called Paris Picnic.
Okay.
And they have this beautiful picnic set up for you, and they deliver it to the picnic of your choosing. Includes a bottle of wine and fruit and charcuterie, and so you have your meats, your cheeses, and then you get a loaf of bread and all kinds of goodies. Nice. And some waters, and they set it up for you. And we did that in front of right by the Trocadero fountains and the Eiffel Tower, because my husband had never been. So that was really lovely, and you can just kind of sit back and relax, and they bring everything for you.
That's really good.
Yeah, so I would.
I do that too, but I schlep it.
Yes, exactly. So it's kind of nice. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not. I feel like it for the quality and for just the convenience factor, it's totally worth it.
Sure.
And then through them, we actually they connect you with photographers, and we did a little photo shoot at the Eiffel Tower just to commemorate, going over there before the baby's born. So that was really cool.
That's great.
And I did it all through the Paris Picnic. So that was really fun.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then I sent my husband on a bike tour since he had never been, and I decided just to shop a little bit while he was gone.
Right. So he did a bike tour of Paris.
He did, yeah. He just, we used Blue Bike Tour, and my mom and I used them twice when we were here in August, and just loved them, had a great experience. It's all local Parisians and that speak great English, so they really know the history well. And so he really enjoyed that, just getting to see all the monuments and get an idea of kind of the lay of the land and where everything was. And
well, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was really fun. And then just had some really good food. So we brought back, I knew this time to bring a bunch of Ziploc bags and a little soft cooler. And so we brought back a ton of pastries.
Ooh.
So save room in your suitcase for that, for sure.
Pastries, huh?
Yes.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I just finished my last pan of chocolat this morning. So.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, because the pastries in America, I don't care where you go, they're not as good.
No, they're just not the same. I don't know if it's the butter, if it's the flour. I think it's just all of that. So.
Yep. Wonderful. Okay, so is there anything else you can think of that you wish you knew before you started using Uber in France that you haven't mentioned already? Sounds like you covered it really well, but.
I mean, yeah, I knew it would be, more expensive than the metro, but it was a lot easier in August. So I would suggest kind of mixing up the transportation. We had a few friends that were there at the same time, and they were using the bus, which I'd never even thought about using. So I would kind of mix it up. That way you don't feel like you're giving all your money to Uber.
Well, honestly, to go to and from the airport, I would definitely consider Uber because I even do that because it's so much easier and it's not that much more money. And if it's just you, if it's just one person, I understand that might be expensive. But if there's 2 or 3 of you, and even more if you have 4, if you don't have too much luggage, obviously, because if you are coming with a ton of luggage, that might be a problem. But it's so much easier to do it that way. It is. And one thing, too, I've tried it at 2 different airports in Paris. When you arrive, I can never find where the Ubers pick you up. Oh, it's we found it easily at Orly. I don't know where they go at CDG, but at Orly it's pretty easy.
We were just standing by all the taxis, and we waited and waited and waited, so we ended up just canceling that and getting a taxi. So maybe, at least for people that haven't been there before, aren't familiar, maybe doing like a shared shuttle service might be a cost-effective option as well. Just when you're arriving, but when you're departing the city, it's super easy. There's hardly any traffic, so that's a quick, easy way to get there.
Well, I'll look into that and put it in the show notes. I'll do a little research of where Uber picks up people at CDG because I don't really know. But where we were, it was where the shuttle vans at Orly. It's where the shuttle vans go.
That's good to know because we couldn't find it when my mom and I were here in August, and we walked all the way around and nobody could tell us, and my broken French, nobody understood me.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah,
and especially if you get there late at night. I mean, it's good just to have a secured ride already.
Yeah,
set,
you need to know where you're going. Another really good option to get into the city from the airport is the Air France has buses.
Oh, that's a great option.
Yeah, that goes some, they don't stop everywhere in Paris, but they have a few stops. So I'll put that also on the show notes for.
That's a great idea.
Episode, yeah.
And you could always take Uber from your stop to your hotel.
That's true. That's
if
true.
It's,
and that would be very
too far.
Short. Yeah, that would be pretty short.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
They stop by Arc de Triomphe is their final stop. So right in the center of Paris. So
yeah, that's a great. I have a friend that's leaving this week for Paris, so I'll make sure I mention that to her because she's flying Air France. So
yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, and I'll put any more information I find out. I will put on the show notes, so check that out, and have a wonderful trip to France, to Paris with Uber.
Absolutely,
and let us know about this baby. We'll want a picture.
I will definitely. I'll be taking her when she's maybe about 3. We'll be going over there and seeing the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think you need. Yeah, because I lived in the U.S. when my daughter was that age, was little, and so we flew over with her every year, starting when she was 8 months old.
Oh, wow.
And it was pretty miserable, I have to say.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, but my mother, who lived in France, demanded it. So what are you going to do? Grandma gets what
exactly.
Grandma wants.
Absolutely.
Anyway, but yeah, when they get to be 3 or 4 and you can have a conversation with them, it's much easier.
And they can sit a little more still. They're not trying to run all over the plane. I think that's good.
Yeah. All right,
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Blair, and best wishes for a lovely baby.
Thank you so much. Merci, Annie. Au revoir.
Merci, au revoir. Thank you for listening to the show. To connect with me, you can email me, Annie at joinusinfrance.com, or leave me a voicemail by calling 1-801-806-1015. If you enjoy the show and would like to express your appreciation for what we do here, please visit joinusinfrance.com/support, where you can donate, tip your guide, or help us earn a commission when making purchases. Again, that's joinusinfrance.com/support. This episode is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives International License. Au revoir!